for spine-chilling true tales of sinister Uber encounters. Horrors revealed in the shadows. It was an ordinary Friday night when Sarah's life took a sinister turn. She had always prided herself on being a good mother, providing for her young son in their suburban Chicago home. Tonight, after a long week of grinding away as a data analyst, she was exhausted. Needing her son home from a friend's house, she requested a late-night Uber ride. The autumn air felt crisp, sharp against her skin, as she nervously adjusted her purse, hoping for a seamless journey. As she settled into the back seat, trembling fatigue washed over her. The driver, a middle-aged man with an unsettlingly friendly smile, began chatting about mundane topics. But his comments quickly became eerie. He knew things about her life details she hadn't shared. First, she thought it was coincidence. Then, she caught a glimpse of his eyes in the rearview mirror. They were dark, hollow, like empty pools sinking deeper and deeper into nothingness. A chill crept up her spine. Something was wrong. Her phone buzzed, shaking her from her growing unease. A text from her son's friend's parents made her heart race. An escaped convict was rumored to be roaming nearby. Panic surged through her as she noticed the driver take another sharp turn, his earlier friendliness morphing into something far more sinister. With each passing block, she felt the tension escalate, twisting around her like a vice. The streets she had known her entire life morphed into shadows of dread. Her heart pounded a frantic rhythm, and a primal instinct rooted deep within began to scream for escape. What if her trusted nightly rides had concealed darkness? As they barreled through dimly lit alleys, memories of neighbors turned sinister flooded her mind. She felt suffocated by fear. Her reality quickly became a nightmare. Could she even trust the police anymore? Then the driver leaned closer to the mirror, ushering forth a low, mocking chuckle. Confusion turned to terror. Each turn his vehicle took was a razor's edge, cutting deeper into her psyche. The hollowness in his eyes reflected her horror back at her, and she was painfully aware that she was nothing more than prey in his sick game. It struck hard. She could rely on no one. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue in the fading light. She felt panic boil higher. As they approached a quieter street, her heart hammered in her chest. The driver's laughter echoed hauntingly, reminding her how quickly safety can become a deceptive mirage. She had to act. Suddenly, she formulated a plan, each beat of her heart racing with the stakes. The weight of realization crushed her. Who was watching from the shadows around her? More importantly, what else lurked beneath the familiar faces in her life? As she turned hesitantly onto a street she thought safe, she wasn't just desperate to escape. She was terrified by the knowledge that danger had a face she could no longer recognize. Panic-stricken, Sarah faced an even darker truth: how far the threads of life could weave, entangling her fate with the malevolent unknown. The question reverberated in her mind as she glanced back. The looming figure in the rearview mirror was a harbinger of more nightmares to come. Who else was watching from the darkness? And how much more sinister was the web around her than she had ever imagined? As they glided through the desolate streets, a bead of sweat rolled down Sarah's back. The driver's laughter morphed into a low, sickening hum, a melody that echoed in the confines of the car, drowning out her rising panic. The buildings began to thin out. The familiar horizon of her neighborhood faded, replaced by looming shadows that seemed to lean in closer, whispering secrets she desperately wanted to ignore. A flicker of headlights from an oncoming car illuminated the driver's face. His smile had twisted into something grotesque, a mask of twisted delight. It was a smile that held unknown horrors, and she fought the urge to recoil. He turned the wheel sharply, taking them down a side street marked by crumbling pavement and weeds cresting through the cracks. Where was he taking her? She felt a wild surge of adrenaline, pressing down her mounting terror. Suddenly, she remembered the small pepper spray in her purse. It wouldn't stop a determined man, but it could give her a moment. Time to think. She fumbled in her bag, praying he wouldn't notice. "Where are we going?" Her voice trembled, the question falling like an executioner's gavel in the eerie silence of the car. "Trust me, you're going to love it," he replied, his voice dripping with eerie amusement. "Let me out," he chuckled again. "Oh, we're almost there. Just a few more turns." The grip of fear twisted tighter around her chest. She fished the spray out as quietly as possible, her heart racing wildly. Just as she raised it, lights blazed from the nearest street lamp, catching the shadow of his arm reaching back toward her. She froze, caught in a moment of dread. "What's that?" His eyes widened in mock inspection, flicking between her face and the canister. Swallowing hard, Sarah decided to risk everything. "I said, let me out." The car jerked to a stop. Her pulse thundered in her ears as she swiftly twisted the lock and flung open the door. The night air hit her cold and sharp. She sprinted blindly into the dimly lit street, hitting the pavement with a desperation that surged through her veins. Behind her, she heard the driver curse, his tumultuous footsteps thundering after her like the roar of a predator. She didn't look back. She turned right, racing through the twisting alleyways, heart hammering as she dodged the oppressive darkness. Every corner felt alive. Shadows pulsated and crept, closing in. With every step, she could sense eyes upon her, specters of doubt and dread haunting her as she twisted and turned. No one was home. The houses loomed empty, hollow and dark, filled with silence that dripped like ice. She had to find her way back to the familiar streets, the safe streets. Pumping adrenaline made her legs scream. Her breath quickened, but she couldn't stop. Panic pushed her forward. In the harrowing stillness, all she could hear was her heartbeat, the relentless thudding matching the pounding of her feet on asphalt. Then, ahead she spotted a figure standing, partially obscured by shadows, his face covered by a hood. Relief collided with terror as she skidded to a halt. "Please, help me," she gasped, voice choked with fear. Laughter echoed from behind her. The driver had emerged from the shadows, a grin illuminating his twisted expression, dangerous and vile. "Did you think you could run away?" His voice slithered through the night air, wrapping around her throat like a noose. Time seemed to slow as she stood frozen in place, questioning whether the shadow in front of her would be her savior or the next monster to consume her. Suddenly, the hooded figure stirred, steps crunching toward her. Who would he be, friend or foe in this nightmare? And there it was, that chilling question: what awaited her fate in the darkness ahead? The figure moved closer, the hood casting a dark veil over his features. Sarah's sweat dripped into her eyes, stinging and blurring her vision, making it hard to gauge his intentions. All she could see were shadows swirling around him, shapes that twisted and morphed into something wicked. "Please, don't hurt me," she murmured, her breath ragged and shallow. He paused, tilting his head just enough for her to glimpse a flash of something. Was it malice or concern? Then the driver's laughter sliced through the night, sharp as broken glass. "You're in no position to beg, sweetheart." In that moment she felt paralyzed. Uncertainty gnawed at her guts. She didn't know whether to trust the stranger or run further away. The hooded figure stepped into the dim light. His eyes looked deep, almost haunted, but no less threatening. "Get away from her," he growled, his voice low and gravelly, but there was a steeliness to his tone. For a fleeting moment, Sarah felt a sliver of hope. Maybe he was here to save her, to pull her out of this nightmare. But then the driver's predatory grin widened. "You think you can save her? You think playing hero will stop the inevitable?" The hooded man clenched his fists. "I said, leave her alone, or what?" The driver leaned casually against the car, a casual menace etched on his face. His posture radiated confidence, like a wolf sizing up a rabbit, deciding the best moment to strike. Without a thought, Sarah took a step toward the hooded figure. "Please, we have to go." Her voice trembled, but the urgency of her words seemed to pierce through the tension. Suddenly, the driver lunged forward, the moment spilling into chaos. Sarah felt a rush of fear as the hooded man ducked, narrowly avoiding the driver's grasp. They collided, and she backed away, feeling a wave of panic wash over her in a swift movement. The hooded figure grabbed the driver's arm, flipping him with surprising strength. The driver stumbled, his shock rapidly replaced by fury, a snarl escaping his lips. "You're making a big mistake." The clash was relentless. Sarah watched in horror as fists flew and shadows danced around them, illuminating this brutal ballet of savagery under the sickly glow of the sporadic streetlights. Each time her would-be savior pushed back, she felt a flicker of hope, but it was quickly drowned under the tide of dread that engulfed her with each blow. The driver's laughter became lower, his rage igniting a fire that lit up his face with malevolence. Sarah's heart pounded in rhythm with the fight, the urgency pushing her closer to the fray. "Stop!" she shrieked, but her voice was lost in the chaos. Suddenly, the driver managed to break free, grasping at a hidden blade from his belt. The metallic flash caught the streetlight, sending a chill through Sarah. It was a stark reminder of how close danger really was. "Run!" the hooded figure yelled, urgency spilling into his voice as he readied himself against the impending storm. Sarah turned, instincts pushing her legs into motion, but as she sprinted back into the darkness, she heard a frantic cry. A piercing scream sliced through the night, one that didn't sound like her own. It echoed in her ears, wrapping around her heart, a plea for help while the shadows loomed on either side. What had she done? In seeking safety, had she left someone behind to face the darkness alone? The choice lay before her: continue fleeing into the abyss or turn back into the fray. In that moment, the horror of her choice became palpable. And deep within the night, another truth lurked. What if the real nightmare was waiting for her ahead? What chilling truths would unveil as she raced against time, against fate? Darkness swallowed Sarah as she dashed into the streets, the sidewalks slick with rain that glimmered like oil under the weak glow of distant streetlights. Her heart thundered in her chest, and she could feel panic clawing at her throat. She forced herself to focus, to breathe, but the cacophony of violence behind her echoed in her mind. The scream, whose was it? She could not dwell on that now. Escape was her only thought. As she stumbled deeper into the alleyways, each breath felt heavy with dread. Shapes twisted in the shadows, the world around her bloodied the edges of her sanity. She turned a corner, heart racing. The sound of her footsteps echoed off the damp brick walls. Behind her, the most unsettling thought gnawed at her. Had she betrayed someone? Was the hooded figure wrong to trust? Rounding another corner, she felt it, a presence. Somebody was there. The hairs on her arms prickled. It was too quiet now. The city that once buzzed with life was now a hostile ghost town. "Hello?" she whispered, her voice barely breaking the thick silence. No answer. And then a shift. The air seemed to change. A shiver ran down her spine as shadows sprang to life. She turned, feeling eyes on her. A figure emerged, this time a woman wrapped tightly in layers of tattered clothing. Her face partially obscured, but her eyes were wide and frantic. "Please," the woman rasped, reaching out a trembling hand. "You have to help me." Instincts kicked in. A stranger, yes, was she friend or foe? Fear twisted in Sarah's gut. "What happened?" she asked, shooting quick glances down the alley. "They've come. They'll take you too." "Who?" The question fell flat against the wall of panic that surrounded them. Suddenly, from a large dumpster nearby, a clatter rang out, and Sarah jumped, ready to bolt. The woman screamed, pulling Sarah closer, eyes wild. "Don't look," she cried, but it was too late. Sarah's curiosity broke her instinct for survival from the shadows. A figure emerged, not the hooded man or the driver, but a gaunt silhouette, its limbs twisting impossibly as it crawled forward, grinning too wide. It was hollow-eyed and predatory. The stench of decay wafted over them. "Run!" Sarah screamed, breaking free from the woman's grip even as another primal instinct screamed at her to stay. They fled together, the staccato of their footsteps spurring each other onward. The sound of rustling shadows chased them, closing in. They follow the fear. The woman gasped, her breath hitching. Keep them away. Sarah's mind raced as they tore around another bend. What do you mean? Who are they? Feed on it, the woman replied, blinking frantically, her voice shaky. Is how they survive. As if in response, a low growl reverberated from the darkness, resonating in Sarah's bones. She was no longer just fleeing from the driver or the hooded figure. Making choices can turn fear into a feast, the woman hissed, her voice turning taunting. They were two prey now, surrounded by a gathering storm of despair. Whatever hunted them had a taste for terror, and she realized, belatedly, she was part of a game larger than herself. Adrenaline surged as they ran. The maze of the alleyways twisted like a dark fable. Sarah stole a glance back. The shadow loomed closer, long limbs extending dangerously. Don't! The woman shouted, her panic erupting as they pivoted to the left, the wrong turn. The alley stretched infinitely ahead, shadows creeping at them from all sides. Sarah's resolve began to erode, but she pushed against it. We can't stop. We can't let them catch us. But as they stumbled, blurring further into the darkness, another scream echoed through the night, rattling her core. Sarah's heart sank. Was it another? Or might it be the hooded figure calling for help? In that moment, as the horror deepened, a thought crystallized. Was it truly her choice? Or was she just a pawn in this nightmarish game? With a choice slung across her shoulders, she propelled forward, deeper into the blackness, desperate to find the way out. But behind her, those frigid shadows swarmed, whispering secrets meant for ears ensnared in dread. The chase wasn't over. Something else loomed just beyond her grasp. The darkness closed in tighter as Sarah and the woman stumbled into the heart of the alleyway. The shape behind them loomed larger, stretching its elongated limbs, dragging a twisted form through the damp, gritty concrete. It was feral and relentless, a predator enjoying the intoxicating scent of fear that hung in the air between them. Keep running, Sarah urged, pushing past the woman who struggled to keep up. With each second that passed, the growling deepened, resonating like a slow drumbeat in the hollow of her chest. Panic twisted around her throat, squeezing harder with every glance over her shoulder. Was the grim thing gaining on them? Was it part of the throng that had descended upon the city? Don't stop, the woman wheezed, her eyes darting around, scanning for an escape route. There's a way out. If we can reach the end. What end? Sarah gasped, her breath coming in choked bursts. They rounded another corner, and the alley expanded just a little, a brief hope shimmering in the shadows. Where? Trust me, the woman pleaded, but as they raced forward, an unmistakable rumble erupted from behind them, a nightmarish cackle, gleeful in its pursuit. Between her labored breaths, Sarah felt the urge to scream, to let loose the agony knotting her insides. She could see it, the figure was close now, a ghastly visage stalked by a nightmarish grin. Felt impossibly wrong. Her resolve teetered as she turned another corner narrowly, ducking into a narrow passage. Stay close, she shouted, pushing ahead, her heart racing wildly. A sudden whirling gust swept through the alleyway, as if the city itself had exhaled a breath held too long. The scent of rain mixed with something unspeakably foul. Unseen things shifted in the deeply clinging shadows. Sarah felt trails of ice running down her spine as she sensed more than one presence around them. A gathering, not just one hunter, but a squadron of the dark. Where do we go? She shouted, but her voice trembled and cracked. The shadows seemed to mock her, echoing back distorted versions of her words. That way, the woman pointed, her voice raw, straining with urgency. With no time for second guesses, they dashed down the next alley. Neon signs flickered to life at the end, a false promise of safety. But with each step, dread pooled in Sarah's stomach. The deeper they ventured, the louder the growl became, morphing into a symphony of sinister laughs. And Sarah knew this wasn't just hunting. This was a feast. Suddenly, they stumbled upon a dead end. A high brick wall loomed before them, cold and unyielding. Sarah's breath hitched in her throat as she turned around. The alley they had just run through darkened. The dark shapes coalesced like a gathering storm. "Climb!" the woman screamed, but Sarah had frozen, rooted to the spot by the weight of doom. A shaking hand grabbed her shoulder, pulling her back. "You have to choose." The woman's eyes were wild. They craved despair. If you give in, but the truth clung to Sarah's throat like a noose. Would fear ensure her survival, or lead her to the jaws of something more hellish? The night echoed with an all-consuming laughter, the kind that pulled at the edges of sanity. A blinding light suddenly cut through the darkness from above. The sound of sirens pierced the quiet but felt distant, unreal. "Look," Sarah gasped, throwing her hands up to shield her eyes from the light cascading down on them. But as her vision adjusted, the forms behind her began to contort, growing still as if waiting for something, and then, the woman's expression changed. Terror morphed into a knowing smile, chilling Sarah's bones. "You never understood the game, did you?" Her voice rang hollow. "This is where it all begins." A new realization crashed over Sarah. This wasn't merely a flight for her life. It was a choice to be made, a sacrifice. In that heartbeat, the shadows surged, hungry and insatiable. The mocking laughter echoed once more as the darkness twisted and lunged, closing in on all sides. Sarah's world spiraled, fractured by the revelations that bore down on her like a ton of bricks. Trapped, with no way out, she had to make the ultimate decision. What would she sacrifice to escape the wrath of the shadows? And was there even a way to win this game? Sarah's heart raced, the binding fear squeezing every rational thought from her mind. The woman's haunting smile pressed against her skin like ice. What choice? What sacrifice? With dark laughter clawing at her sanity, her instincts screamed for action, yet her body felt paralyzed. The shadows shifted and slithered, tightening around the physical world, ready to consume anything in their reach. She could feel the pressing weight of dread, a suffocating cloak that wrapped around her with the promise of despair. "What do I do?" she whispered, her voice barely escaping her lips. "Listen," the woman said urgently, her eyes wide and desperate. "You can't give in. It feeds on your fears. You have to fight back." Fight back? Against what? The hunting shapes? Their grim forms were just there, peering through the yawning darkness, their twisted limbs pulsating like grotesque shadows eager to claw at flesh. A part of Sarah yearned to break free from the doom that encased them, but another part, a darker, quieter part, considered surrendering. Maybe that was the key. Maybe they would leave her alone if she simply stopped fighting. "No!" she suddenly shouted, as if saying the word could dispel the darkness itself. The shadows quivered at the sound, a fleeting hesitation. Dread surged like a tidal wave of adrenaline within her. She looked at the woman, the only lifeline she had in this festering nightmare. "Go! There has to be a way!" Sarah cried, peering frantically down the cold, damp wall. But it was too high and too dark to see any hold. "Trust your instincts," the woman shouted back, urgency fueling her words. "Sometimes you must sacrifice something within you to find the path to survive." Sacrifice. The weight of understanding hit Sarah with the force of a freight train. It wasn't a sacrifice of flesh. It was her own heart, her own will. Was she ready to surrender a piece of herself to escape this? And then, with a deep breath that felt like plunging into ice-cold water, Sarah screamed loudly, from the very depths of her soul. A primal sound that tore through the silence. It wasn't just a scream for help. It was a challenge, a roar that demanded the darkness retreat, even if just for a moment. The laughter faltered, and the shadows hesitated ever so slightly, as if her defiance had unsettled their hunger. "Keep going," the woman shouted, her eyes gleaming with renewed hope as shadows flickered in confusion. They turned, sprinting along the wall, searching for anything, an opening, an escape. But the darkness didn't retreat for long. It surged back, a relentless tide crashing against their trembling figures, the growls amplifying into a cacophony that rattled Sarah's bones. "Here." The woman pulled Sarah toward a narrow crevice, nearly hidden in the brick. Their breath tasted like copper, weighed heavy by the underlying dread. "Get in," Sarah glanced back, terrified by the thought of what might close in on them. As the woman squeezed in first, Sarah felt the nudge of fear clawing at her, urging her to look over her shoulder. Then she froze. The shapes formed grotesque faces, grinning and swaying forward, ready to devour them whole. They hissed with anticipation. A terrifying sight shimmered in the heavy air. The forms were not just shadowy predators. They were memories, echoes of lost souls, each one a part of her own fears twisted into tormenting manifestations. Sarah, the woman's frantic voice snapped her back. You have to choose now. Without another thought, relinquishing a piece of her spirit, her will to fight against them, she shoved herself into the crevice after the woman, their shoulders scraping against the cold, rough brick. The laughter bellowed behind them, but it felt like it was being muffled, fading into the abyss. Inside the crevice, shadows flickered and twisted, but dim light began to seep through, illuminating what lay beyond. A door, ancient and heavy, standing between them and whatever was waiting on the other side. They're not done with us yet, the woman whispered, her breath trembling. Not until we face them. Sarah felt the pull of dread creeping back, but the dim light ahead sparked something fierce within her. Could she truly confront the shadows that had haunted her, or had she merely delayed the inevitable? As they both stood before the door, a sense of impending confrontation washed over them. It was not just about escaping anymore. It was about confronting the horror, grappling with the true game that loomed ahead. Are you ready? The woman asked, determination glowing in her eyes. Sarah nodded, heart racing. With a final breath, she laid her hand against the door. It would either lead to freedom or introduce them to the dreadful reality of their intertwined fates. What lay beyond was unknown, the laughter, the memories, the choice they would have to make, all waiting. And just like that, Sarah pushed the door open. The door creaked open, revealing a dim, narrow staircase leading down into a darker abyss. A musty smell rose up, tangling in Sarah's throat and making her stomach churn. The faint light that surrounded them dimmed, swallowed by the looming shadows beneath. Instinct kicked in, urging her to flee. Yet she forced her feet to step inside, pulled by a mysterious force and the urgency in the woman's eyes. Stay close, the woman said, her voice taut with dread. They began their descent. Each step echoed in the stillness, a reminder that they were not alone in the dark. Something watched. Something waited. As they reached the bottom, the air felt thicker, suffocating. The chamber opened up, revealing walls lined with mirrors that warped reality. Reflections flickered in and out of focus, morphing into twisted versions of themselves with hollow eyes and distorted smiles. Sarah gasped, recoiling at the sight while the woman pressed on, her face set in resolve. Don't look at them too long, she warned, her voice sharp and urgent. They can show you things that you've buried. But curiosity, always the traitor, pulled Sarah back. She caught a glimpse of herself in a mirror, fear etched into her features. But there was something else, something lurking beneath the surface, clawing to come out. Let me in, Sarah. A whisper slithered through the air, wrapping around her mind. Cold dread shot down her spine. You know I'm part of you. You can't escape me. Don't listen, the woman shouted, grabbing Sarah's wrist, yanking her away just as the mirror shimmered ominously. We have to keep moving. The hushed laughter of the shadows had returned, seeping through the cracks in the walls, growing louder, more sinister. Each echo felt like a taunt, each flicker of the lights like a reminder of their fragile sanity. Ahead, a larger mirror stood, its frame ornate and ancient, gleaming with an unnatural light. Drawing them in, it pulsed like a heartbeat. Sarah. The woman's voice trembled, fear lacing every syllable. The door you opened, it's a reflection of your mind. It's showing what you keep hidden. You need to confront it. Face your worst fears before it's too late. The shadows churned, coalescing around them, drawing closer. Sarah's breath came in frantic bursts. She felt the warmth of her companion beside her, a reminder of the flickering hope they shared. She wanted to shove the woman away, to run back to the safety of the crevice, but she couldn't abandon the only ally she had left. With a trembling hand, Sarah reached toward the mirror, the allure of its secrets proving too tempting to resist. As her fingers grazed the surface, a chilling image manifested, spreading like ink. Dark tendrils reached from the glass like skeletal hands grasping at her. "Stop!" the woman cried, pulling Sarah back just in time. "It's not real. Don't get trapped in the illusion. We have to confront the truth." Sarah shouted back, the frustration boiling inside her. Tears threatened, but she swallowed hard, refusing to fracture in this hell and the distance. More shapes emerged from the darkness, memories swirling into grotesque forms. A man, a face she recognized all too well, twisted with anguish. "Sarah, help me," the woman stepped forward, halting Sarah's instinct to retreat. "You have to remember, this isn't who they are now, but who they used to be. You can't let them pull you under. We have to fight for our freedom." The shadows surged, laughter mixing with cries of despair. The mirror trembled, the surface rippling like water, drawing them ever closer to the churning chaos. Sweat trickled down Sarah's back, heart thundering in her chest. She couldn't let go. She wouldn't. In that moment, she resolved to face whatever waited in that dark glass. Palms pressed against the mirror, she steadied her breath and steeled herself. "Let us do this," she whispered, looking to the woman, who nodded in solidarity. Together, they pushed against the mirror, willing to pull back the veil of fear that shackled them. Would the truth set them free, or would it serve as their final undoing? Just as their resolve peaked, the laughter erupted, echoing around them like thunder, drowning out their cries. The mirror rippled violently, and in an instant a blinding flash of light engulfed them. When it faded, the reflections were gone, but the shadows loomed larger, their voices now a deafening cacophony in her mind, drowning out her thoughts, her will. Shadows swirled around like a tempest, threatening to consume everything in their path. Sarah was left teetering on the edge of a void, balancing between past and present, truth and illusion. What awaited her in the heart of that swirling darkness? Would she regain control, or would the whispers of despair finally pull her under? And then, from deep within, the truth screamed back, a haunting echo in the silence. "You can never escape me." The blinding light fractured into shards, reality spinning around Sarah. Gasping, she found herself slipping into the shadows that danced just beyond her reach. The woman's terrified face was obscured by thick blackness, her voice barely a whisper now. "Fight it, Sarah. It's all a trick." But the shadows clawed at her, eager to swallow her whole. They whispered her name, hungry and insistent, like an insatiable creature poised to consume the last vestiges of her will. Sarah's heart raced. She clawed against the darkness, desperation fueling her as cold tendrils brushed against her skin, searching for weakness. "Ha! You can't resist." A raspy voice echoed through her mind, each word like a stone dropped into her stomach. "You've always known you belong here. Take your truth." Images crashed against her consciousness, flickers of memories not meant to resurface. The fire that engulfed her childhood home, the screams, the family photos now only scorched remnants. Sarah fell to her knees, clutching her head, battling the rising tide of despair. Remember, the woman's voice cut through the haze, sharp and poignant. "You have the power. You can change this." With one intense breath, Sarah pushed beyond the pain. "No," she shouted, voice fierce against the dark. "You don't control me." The shadows recoiled momentarily, a flicker of light battling within her. But the tendrils regrouped, more cunning than before. They spiraled tighter around her limbs, the darkness snaking up her arms like ice. Whispers clawed at her sanity. Yet, within the chaos, a small spark ignited in her chest. A fierce emotion surged, an echo of love and strength. Sarah could see it now, the faces of those she'd lost and the warmth they once brought into her life. They weren't just remnants of pain, but a shield against the nightmares threatening her. "You will not take them from me," she screamed, feeling the raw power of her memory swell. With a force she didn't know she possessed, Sarah thrust her hands forward, sending a pulse of energy towards the shadows. Light burst from her fingertips, illuminating the dark chamber. The shadows shrieked, their cacophonous laughter piercing her ears. You were always weak, they howled, straining against the radiance. But this time their power faltered. The shadows began to fragment, splintering like glass under pressure. The woman stood tall beside her, gathering her strength, her own hands reaching into the fray. Together, they forged a barrier of light that pushed back against the morass of terror, illuminating the twisted faces lurking in the corners of the room. Keep fighting. We're almost there, the woman urged, fire igniting in her voice. The room lurched, the mirror walls shuddering as if in fear. Sarah felt a surge of triumph, every positive memory pouring through her, like the warmth of sunlight breaking through a storm. The darkness thrashed, but it lacked the power it once commanded. Then, out of the chaos, a familiar figure approached through the swirling mass, her brother, twisted and anguished, eyes filled with grief. Sarah, please. I need you. The flicker of his presence sent a wave of sorrow flooding her senses. In that moment, uncertainty flooded her. Was he a specter meant to deceive her? Or was this a chance to reach beyond the darkness that suffocated them both? Don't listen. Yes, not real, the woman shouted, her voice filled with urgency. But Sarah hesitated. Was it really him? Was this an opportunity to mend the brokenness of her past? Sarah. His voice wavered, desperation leaking through. Help me. I'm still here. The shadows shifted, gnashing like wolves eager to pounce. They could feel her hesitation, pulling tighter with each fleeting second. There is no time. You need to choose, the woman urged, her tone tight with fear. A heartbeat raced in the turmoil of her emotions. The flickering light of hope against the oppressive darkness clawed at her resolve. Would she reach for what came from love, or would she succumb to the fear that had haunted her for years? Choosing in the eye of that storm wasn't simple, and she felt the shadows snarl louder, ready to devour her indecision whole. Her pulse quickened as a new reality unfurled in her mind, setting her on edge. Make your decision, Sarah, or lose everything. And there, amidst the madness, lingered the terrifying question that could break her. What was the true cost of choosing love, and would it lead her back into the light or seal her fate in the deepest darkness? The world spun wildly as Sarah stood frozen, heart pounding in her chest. Was it him? Her brother, lost to the inferno that had stolen everything, his laugh, his warmth, all gone in a flash of flames. The shadows clawed, insistent, tightening their grip, but still, she couldn't tear her gaze away from his haunted eyes. Please, Sarah. You're stronger than this, he begged, voice wavering, filled with a desperate vulnerability that almost pierced the choking darkness surrounding them. But the woman beside her pressed on. Fight. You know this isn't real. It felt like standing at the edge of a cliff, where the ground quivered beneath her. Each whispered promise from the dark tried to blow her away like sand. What do I do? She gasped, vulnerability threatening to choke her. Trust your heart, not the shadows, the woman shouted, pushing back against the curling blackness. With a shaky breath, she searched deep within. The aching memories of laughter, the feel of a hug that still lingered, this was what belonged to her. She tilted her head, focusing on the figure of her brother. If it's really you, she whispered, let me see, feel the love we had. Sarah, you can't let them win. He stepped forward, but with every step, his form flickered, caught between light and dark. The shadows surged, sensing her wavering faith. They screeched as though enacting a ritual of destruction, the voices merging into a terrifying symphony of despair. Embrace the darkness, they howled. This is a lie. He is nothing more than a ghost. A chill brushed through her as they tightened their grip, the air shifting, thickening with dread. Her palms were slick with sweat as she focused desperately on the warmth of those memories. Memories that soared against the icy claws tightening at her throat. Enough, she shouted, a defiance igniting within her. You don't control me. In that moment, the light within her surged brighter, warping against the grip of fear. I won't let you take me, she cried. Glimmers of hope pulsed from her, light flickering and crackling like a fire igniting from the embers. The shadows reeled back, howling in fury. She felt the touch of her brother's spirit shattering the illusions, forcing clarity through the noise. The echo of his laughter filled her head like a haunting melody, anchoring her. "You were never alone, Sarah. Remember our dreams." But the shadows lunged forward, clawing at the precious feet of her memories, trying to slash them from the fabric of her being. "You are weak. You don't belong here," they screamed, furious. With every ounce of will, Sarah combined memories of love with the force of light, launching a blinding wave toward the encroaching blackness. "I choose love," she declared, her voice ringing with conviction that reverberated throughout the dark chamber. The collision was cataclysmic. Light burst forth with stunning ferocity, scattering shadows like brittle leaves caught in a storm. She watched as the twisted visions of her brother faltered, his face shifting uncertainly, melting back into the void beneath the bright surge. A silence fell, heavy and palpable, as the shadows shrank back, howling in their retreat. Panting, Sarah tried to catch her breath, the echoes of despair still flickering at the edges of her mind. But then the woman whispered urgently, "This isn't over. They will come back, and next time, they won't hesitate to strike at your heart again." An image flickered behind Sarah's eyes, a dark whirlwind swirling above her, revealing countless faces, grotesque and hungry, waiting just outside the remnants of light. "Then we will be ready," she whispered back, but doubt prickled at her resolve. Just as she turned to face the woman, she realized the room was shifting around them again. The very walls that had once offered comfort now seemed to pulse with something sinister, an unseen force gathering strength. Sarah, the woman's voice wavered, an edge of fear creeping in. "This realm is unstable. We must move quickly." But the air thickened, calling her name, a sinister reminder of what lay beyond. Shadows writhed and roared, chilling promise hanging heavy in the air. Then came a distant sound, a clock's ticking, ominously counting down, each beat pounding in tandem with her racing heart. "Sarah," the woman shouted, just as the darkness lunged once more, claws reaching for Sarah's ankles, dragging her toward the abyss. Where to run? What escape was there now? With panic flooding her veins, she screamed, "What happens next?" And as the shadows clutched tighter, the room fell silent once again, waiting, just waiting. The room pulsed with an ominous energy, shadows writhing in dark ecstasy, and Sarah felt herself teetering on the brink of despair. The echoing countdown ricocheted in her mind, tick, tick, tick. She understood now. This was not just a battle of will, but an ultimatum. Face the darkness within or succumb to the shadows yearning to claim her. "Move!" the woman shouted, snapping Sarah back into the moment, and finally, she ran. The darkness clawed at her heels, whispering twisted promises, but she pushed forward, adrenaline flooding her veins. Each step felt monumental, the weight of fear threatening to anchor her in place. They dashed through the shifting walls, the mirrors mocking reflections warping into grotesque visages, clawing at her psyche. Yet amid the cacophony, a thought broke through the terror. The woman was right. This was a reflection of her mind. She had to confront what loomed within. "Find the truth, Sarah," the woman urged, eyes sharp with determination. "What do you fear most?" As they plunged deeper into the fray, everything twisted once more. Suddenly, Sarah found herself standing alone in another chamber, darker than before. The walls shimmered with grotesque images of her childhood, a raging fire, her brother's screams, her parents' face twisted in anguish, but there was more. Rotting echoes of betrayal and long-buried pain clawed their way to the surface. "No, no, no," Sarah gasped, stumbling backward. "Don't look away." The woman's voice rang out desperately. "You have to face them." In that moment, the pieces began to align. Her fear wasn't just the shadows. It was the guilt of having survived when those she loved didn't. The rage at herself for letting go of the life they were supposed to build together. She could feel the weight of it, heavy on her chest, building a wall she couldn't break through. "I won't let you win," she shouted, clenching her fists, heart pounding as memories surged like tidal waves. "They were my family, and I loved them. You can't take that away." The darkness shrieked, recoiling slightly, hesitating at her fierce resolve. Yet, it quickly regrouped, gathering force, ready to plunge back into the fray. They were tearing at her will, threatening to drag her down with their insidious laughter. A grotesque specter of her brother emerged again, his form flickering ominously. "Sarah, you're weak. You never believed, not even when it mattered." She faltered, anguish and doubt gripping her heart. But as she faced that figure, something ignited within. A spark of defiance flared. "I am stronger than you think," she yelled, forcing herself to meet his hollow gaze. "I loved you, and that love is what I carry forward." Flashing lights erupted from her will, illuminating the shadows, forcing them to recoil. The air thickened with energy. An ethereal glow enveloped her, as if the power of each cherished memory forged an armor around her. "Let it go, Sarah," the woman urged, stepping in close, radiating a confidence that pierced through the chaos. "Face it. Turn that pain into strength." "I'm done hiding," Sarah cried, finally unleashing a wave of energy that rippled through the chamber. "I refuse to carry this burden any longer." The shadows twisted and screamed, the noise deafening as she tapped into every ounce of love, every beautiful memory she locked away. The horrific figures surrounding her began to dissolve, shadows bickering in fright. She pushed harder, pouring every ounce of herself into that radiant shield of love. "Together," the woman said, reaching out, and Sarah grasped her hand, tugging her into the light. Heart racing, breath hitching, they united their strength, intensifying the brilliance that started to envelop the darkness. The shrieks morphed into howls, reverberating through the crumbling walls. As the shadows dimmed one last time, Sarah closed her eyes, aware of the push toward the blinding clarity. The glossy reflections melted away, and with it, every trace of her guilt. In a final, deafening roar, the shadows disintegrated into a cloud of ash, scattering to oblivion. The chamber vibrated as a brilliant light erupted, causing her to shield her eyes, filled with warmth and acceptance. "Sarah?" The woman's voice broke through. "We did it." As the dust settled, Sarah peered into the remaining clarity. A luminous door now opened before them. It felt like a promise, a way out, a second chance. They stepped forward, warmth surging around them, sweeping away doubt and despair. Together they emerged into the light, glowing brightly like the dawn breaking after a long, haunted night. Suddenly, Sarah breathed deeply, feeling an extraordinary weight lift from her. The shadows had shown her the depths of her fears, and now, with every heartbeat, she felt more resolute. "I'm ready," she whispered, a radiant smile breaking across her face. "This is just the beginning," the woman said, sharing in her joy. "Together we will reclaim the light." As the doorway closed behind them, Sarah stepped into her new reality, ready to confront life's challenges, to own her scars, and to blossom anew. And in that moment, she finally understood. The true victory wasn't just breaking free from the darkness, but transforming it into a part of her strength. They left the shadows behind, ready to embrace everything that lay ahead. What horrors awaited outside were no longer a concern. She had faced her fears and emerged alive with purpose. Now, as they turned to face the horizon, the spark of hope solidified inside of her. She knew she could conquer anything. Hey, this is your moment. You need to subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss out on the next exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm. Every click counts. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories. What did you think of the ending? I want to hear from you. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Only true fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions. Let us keep the stories alive together.